A unanimous ruling from the Supreme Court, the justices handing down a historic decision on Colorado's attempt to bar former President Donald Trump from the ballot under the 14th Amendment's insurrection ban. The Supreme Court ruling in Trump's favor, saying that Colorado has no right to keep his name off the state's ballot. That decision coming just one day before Super Tuesday, when voters in Colorado and 14 other states are headed to the polls. Our senior Washington correspondent, David Muir, joining us now, along with reporter Catherine Falders in Mar-a-Lago and legal contributor Asha Rangappa, who's been following this blockbuster decision for us. Asha, let's start with you and just talk about what precedent did the court make today with this ruling?
Well, this wasn't necessarily surprising in terms of the outcome. What the court said here is that states don't have the power to enforce Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which disqualifies insurrectionists from holding federal office, that states can't apply that to people running for federal office, that only Congress can do that. And I think what's noteworthy here is that there was unanimity in terms of the outcome, but if you read the opinion, there is disagreement about how the court got there.
So, Devin, let's talk about what this ruling means for tomorrow's primary now in Colorado, and how does it impact similar efforts, say, in Maine, Illinois, to try and block Trump from those ballots?
Well, this decision, Kira, brings to an end this constitutional attack on Donald Trump's candidacy that we saw not only in Colorado, but Illinois, Maine, and a number of other states. This is the end of the road for that approach to taking down Donald Trump. And by the way, it was an approach advanced by conservative legal scholars, backed by Democrats. So this is really putting that to rest today. Effectively, it doesn't change much ahead of tomorrow's Super Tuesday primaries. Donald Trump was already going to be on the ballot in Colorado because they had printed those well in advance while this litigation was pending. But this certainly gives clarity to voters going into the polls in Colorado, in Maine, later in Illinois, that Donald Trump still can rack up those votes. He still can get those delegates because this challenge has now been struck down by a unanimous Supreme Court. And this was a historic decision, Kira, the first time the Supreme Court weighed in on this part of the Constitution and the most direct intervention in one of our presidential elections in more than 20 years. So, Devin, you realize how important this is. You just put that into perspective here. But the decision was made pretty quickly. Oh, it sure was. I mean, the Supreme Court, as you know, Kira, does not move this fast in its traditional course. Less than a month ago, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments in this case, an extraordinary step on its own, and then less than a month later issued this unanimous opinion. We don't normally see that kind of approach from the court, so a big moment for the institution to speak so in a single voice on such a controversial issue today. So sort of a win for the court, but this isn't the end of the road for these types of challenges, Kira. This was, as I've been saying today, something of the appetizer, if you will, for the debate over Donald Trump's conduct after the 2020 election. The Supreme Court is still going to get a couple more bites at that apple. They didn't talk about his conduct in today's decision. There you see the two Colorado attorneys that argued this case, but they will have a chance next month when the Supreme Court takes up this question of whether he can be prosecuted for the very same thing that Colorado tried to remove him from the ballot for. Special Counsel Jack Smith, as you know, is looking to prosecute him for that conduct, and the Supreme Court will get to decide whether that can go ahead.
So, Catherine, let's just talk about how this is such a big win for the former president.
Look, it is, and we just heard from former President Trump, who is saying as much, that this is a victory for him today, as he will be able to remain on the ballot. But it certainly isn't the end of the road for former President Trump's legal troubles, and that was pretty apparent by his remarks at Mar-a-Lago. Of course, he touted the Supreme Court victory, but spent much of the time talking about how the Supreme Court is set to hear arguments next month on presidential immunity. The former president believes that any acts that he committed while president, that he should essentially be immune from prosecution. So the big question, Kira, there is what will the court say after those arguments April 22nd, I believe, at the end of next month. And that really affects when, if at all, that election subversion case in Washington, D.C., when and if that will go to trial before November.
All right, and Asha, there were also two concurring opinions to the unanimous ruling today. What stood out to you in those opinions?
Yeah, what stood out is that the 3 Democratic-appointed justices felt that the majority, which was an unsigned, there was no specific author, but the 5 most conservative justices argued that only Congress can enact legislation that would enforce Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And the Democratic appointees felt that they had just gone too far. They had basically interpreted more than they needed to in this circumstance. And then you had Justice Amy Coney Barrett sort of in the middle saying, everybody just needs to calm down. She agreed that maybe they'd gone a little bit too far, but I think she was trying to suggest that they all needed to be on the same page. So I think that though this was a unanimous opinion in terms of the outcome, I do think that you can see a little bit of this this disagreement happening in the course of this opinion, and I think it will be really interesting to see how this all plays out in that immunity decision that the court still has coming up.
Devin, Catherine, Asha, thank you all so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.